Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 65 of the Tait Talks podcast. Today I'm sitting with Jeremy Dooley. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. You should have had me on in 4 episodes' time.
Oh, you reckon?
Yeah.
Why behind it?
69 flavours. Let's roll into with that.
Yeah, it was true. Maybe I can get you back on.
Yeah.
And then you can just go into that.
Dinner for two. Yeah.
Before we start, you're a very, very interesting man.
Okay.
You are,
sure.
Yeah, comedian.
Yep.
You were an ex-MMA pro fighter.
Yep.
And you're also Captain Starlight of the
Yes.
Kids Foundation.
Yep.
Today in this episode, we're going to touch on pretty much MMA because I love it. And also my phone dings and makes sounds while I do that.
That's all right.
So let's talk about your MMA career or just mixed martial arts in general.
Yeah.
When does that happen? How does it happen?
Wow. Origin story for martial arts began in 1995 for me.
Yep. So you're a child?
I was, it would have been in like grade 3 or grade 4, but obsessed with Kung Fu movies, all the OG, like Bruce Lee's, like Jackie Chan's, all those sorts of guys, and like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was my whole world.
Yeah.
At that time. And I just kind of begged, and I was like jumping off the shed in the backyard and like making like weapons and stuff like that, and constantly begging mum to put me into classes. And so she took me to a few different schools, and we went to one of those like McDojo style like taekwondo schools where it's like
this isn't real.
Even at that age I was like, this is bullshit.
It's more dancing.
This is not going to be useful.
I think John Doerr did that.
He did taekwondo. And then started in 1995, and basically that's...
So you're like 8, 6, 7, 8?
Yeah, I was 8. Yeah.
And then so you start doing that, and you do it the entire time.
So I did karate, Gojo Ryu, karate for 13 years.
So Gojo Ryu, is that a style or
that's
an
a
area
style of karate. So it incorporates hard stuff, but also like some soft stuff.
Wing.
So like it's kind of, it's not just all out aggression. So there's a lot of it, but there's also a lot of
some prison stuff.
You're learning how to use the other person against themselves in some elements.
Insults.
Exactly. Comebacks.
Yeah.
So did that 13 years, and then was doing some like sword training as well alongside that. So like with the samurai swords and stuff like that. And that was a lot of fun.
Yuri, what's his name? The UFC fighter.
Pro Husker.
Yeah. He's all about that. Samurai life.
Yeah. It was hard. It's actually really hard work.
Yeah. Assume you'd get your fingers sliced off.
Yeah, your thumb gets sliced a lot when you're taking the sword in and out of the sheath. Like it's my left thumb is just so like funny. Constantly just getting torn to shreds. And because you do sparring as well with it, but you'd have special sparring swords which are blunter. Or if you were going all out intensity, you'd use a kendo stick, which getting hit with one of them like on the back of your hand is excruciating.
Yes.
So I was doing that, and then kind of had done everything I could in karate at that time. Like I was kind of bored because I'd been competing from a really young age and competing really often, national teams and titles and all that sort of stuff. And then I was watching The Ultimate Fighter season 1 and of the UFC, and that was, I think it was Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture were the coaches, and that was the famous...
Was it Diaz?
No, it was Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin finale.
Yes, the best fight of all time.
Yeah, and I watched that and I thought, I could do that.
Bonner died.
Yeah, he's not in the fight. Since then, long career after that fight.
Fucking he was.
Yeah, recently.
Yeah, that's crazy. But when you say competing and like going back, what do you actually do when you say competing? Like I assume you're fighting someone, but what are the rules? What are you trying to achieve? What is a quick game plan of that style? It's karate?
Yep.
So what's a comp?
So it kind of would depend on who's organising it and what global umbrella you're working in. Sometimes it was semi-contact, so you can't like go to the head.
Karate Kid style.
Yeah, basically. Sometimes it was go wild if it was an all styles thing in particular.
Did you like those ones?
I
compared to-
preferred All In.
Yeah, because you got more fucking.
Yeah, and one of my first few competitions in semi-contact, like I would just get disqualified because I would just like crack someone in the face. Because it's how we trained. Like you train hard, and you train all the time, and so it's just muscle memory. You're not really thinking.
Someone's you got an opening and you just crack them.
Yeah, as soon as he's dropped his hands, great, and of course he's dropped his hands because he's not expecting getting hit in the face. So learned pretty quickly that wasn't for me, and then went into the world of MMA, had to unlearn a lot of things, a lot of stances and stuff like that. I've had to go really balls deep in the grappling side of things. I only knew a couple of basic submissions.
Yep.
And then started competing in that. And
so what's the age now though? What's MMA? What's your age?
I'm 38 now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, so when I started competing, I would have been 23.
23,
yeah.
So
early 20s.
So you've been doing martial arts for what, 10 years? Well, no, not 10
years. About 13 years. I would have been competing for about 10 years at that point.
Yeah.
So I'd already had a lot of...
So just used to like gym environments, hierarchy of this person's going to tell you what to do, getting used to battered in the head, psychopaths.
Yep.
Everyone, just different people in gyms.
You're used to the idea of competition as well. And like performing and knowing how to perform and when to perform and, dirty tricks, all those mind games. You learn all of that at a really young age.
Yeah. Any dirty tricks that quickly, like not quickly, but anything that springs to your mind that we wouldn't see as... I watch a lot of MMA.
Yeah.
Mainly UFC, but what dirty tricks could you do in, let's say, MMA?
In MMA...
but we wouldn't see or knows going on.
If you're in someone's guard, one thing I like to do is dig my chin into the sternum of the other person. It elicits... It's really painful. It's a really like sharp pain. So that's a little one. I'm constantly trying to like cover airways and stuff like that, and like drive my shoulders... into people's jaws, in a grappling position so they can't turn their head.
Yeah, okay.
And one of my favourite ones is when you're going for a Kimura arm lock, I will quickly drop my elbow into the person's floating rib. And it kind of has this like electric shock reaction. And their arm is like, great, I'm taking your arm home. So I like doing that. I don't mind.
It's all within the rules.
It's all within the rules. I'm staying in the rules, but I'm on the edge of the rules sometimes.
It's not just cracking someone in the mouth.
Not
allowed to.
You punch. It's like also where you aim. So sometimes... people will just aim for the head, but I'm trying to aim for like the chin because then I'll either get the face or I'll get you in the throat, which makes it harder for you to breathe.
Yes, that's smart.
And you only need someone to like break their breathing rhythm for a short period of time before they get tired.
Yeah. That all makes sense. But like the thing that gets me is just like, if I was in a fight.
Yeah.
But obviously it's not a sanctioned fight. That's the only fight that I would be in.
Yeah.
Right? I'd punch him in the dick.
Yeah.
Like I would not hesitate at all to be like, I need to win this fight. And if I was in a fight, it was probably like the last thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm not fighting someone for fun or because I like...
There's been a series of events.
Yeah. Like someone's fucking, they haven't given me a sauce at McDonald's or something. But... how do you stop yourself when you're like, someone's beating you and you're in pain and you're not like, I'm going to pull this guy's dick off?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard when you're actually in competition because there's bits where you have these moments where you're almost outside yourself thinking like, oh, I'm like about to lose here. The ref's about to step in. Or it's like, oh, this really sucks.
Yeah.
It's just muscle memory. Although one of the best things I've ever seen in a street fight, I was in Vegas and one of the guys who was the lead Muay Thai instructor at the gym I was training at, there was this massive altercation and he just went and he leg kicked everyone. And it's so leg kicking is really smart to do in a street fight if you know how to do it really, really well, because you're going to immobilize the other person and it's really, really painful. But also if you're on the receiving end, it's not something you can then go to the police and be like, oh, I've got like a concussion, like you're not unsafe. And if anything, you'll get laughed at because Unless you're on the receiving end of it, you don't know how painful a leg kick can be right on the quad, shin to quad.
So the dude was just running around.
He literally, it was amazing to watch. Like he just went bang, 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 bang. And then one guy was like, really like full like affliction sort of tap out top. He's like, come on, let's go. And bang, another one to him.
Are they going down?
They're all dropping like trees. Yeah. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was great. And here's the thing. So like everyone in that group, we were all trained fighters.
Yeah.
But this was the only person who took action.
Yeah.
Because we're just like, we don't want to we'll get in big trouble for this.
I've always wondered. So I wanted to touch on how do you stop yourself? Like your average person does not know how to fight. They might have better like ability to duck and weave, might have strong arms, know how to throw a punch just by doing it at home, watching at home, fucking watching movies when we're kids, whatever. You know that you can beat up 90% of people. That's just a fact, right? How do you stop yourself in an angry moment going, don't hurt this person? Because you can.
Yeah. My first karate teacher, I would have been really young when he said this, but he said to me once, if you train properly for 1 year in martial arts, you'll know how to fight one person. And fight that one person really well and touch them up. If you train for 5 years in martial arts and you train well for 5 years,
you'll fuck them.
You'll destroy them.
Yeah.
If you train for 10 years or more, you'll learn how to fight no one.
Yeah, because you just won't do it.
You don't need to. Yeah. So it's almost like this ego sort of thing can really dissipate.
I like how karate is real tranquil.
Yeah.
Like that. But then you watch UFC fighters and they're like, I would have been in prison if I wasn't doing this shit. And you're like, why did we teach him how to fight?
Yeah, but then that's the thing. So when it comes to selling a fight as well, because that's a huge part of it, is the gamesmanship and the talking, even at the low levels.
That's the part I would like.
Because you got to get people in.
Yeah, grudge match.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's why people are just like, fuck you and your mum and your kids. And then after it, they're like, listen, I would have fucked you and your mum, but I'm not touching your children. There's a little...
But it's also too... when you're competing and it's organized, there is this element, of like you gotta, and I was the same when I was competing. There was this big part of me where it was like, I'm really thankful that you're allowing me to compete and to test my skills against you. I'm really grateful for that opportunity. But also, who the fuck do you think you are challenging me and that you can go toe to toe with me? Like, come on now, like settle down. I'm going to put you in your place and make you question why you even do martial arts.
But the thing is, like, for the most part, that I think innately in most guys, we see someone when we're walking down the street, wherever it is, we think if this person wanted to go, I could take them.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how big they are, how small. But in reality, like, you'd probably get the shit kicked out of you. The only reason I know that I'm not a good fighter is because I have done little bits.
Yeah.
Going to Thailand. And realizing that people who are quarter of my size and women that I've sparred with, and be like, all right, Tater, just take it easy on this bitch. And she's just like, fucking bang.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Did I do something wrong?
And well, every guy, I read this somewhere, I can't remember who said it, but they reckon that every guy thinks that he's really good at driving, fucking, and fighting. And the reality is probably not good at any of them.
Yeah.
I'm good at one. And even then, I'm not that good at it.
Yeah.
But Thailand's really, like, I've done a lot of training in Thailand, and that's a very humbling place to train, and a lot of Westerners go there and get very, very humbled, especially like big, like muscle bound.
It's great. I love it. I did it purely as fat camp, which I've talked about in earlier episodes on the pod, but it's literally, you realize the difference of your mentality from someone like me who's really, really enjoyed martial arts and just generally just wanted to try it themselves and thought I would be like okay at it. And then actually being with the big dogs and being like, oh, you could literally rape me.
Yeah.
There's no question
and
about it.
they'll do it
like,
dry.
Yeah. Like, use my tears.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's fucked. It's, as you said, very, very humbling experience. And then for someone like you who knows how to do it and then still gets humbled is terrifying.
Oh, it's the first place I went to train in Thailand. I was training at Fairtex, and it's like there's now like this bougie like resort style Fairtex in Pattaya, but
Oh, yeah.
this one was the OG one, just out of Bangkok, and it was real like old school style at this point in time.
Yeah.
And I was there and I was training, and I was there for a few months at this point. Was training really well, and I did some sparring against the smallest of the coaches.
Yeah.
His name was Monkey, and Monkey would have been, I reckon, 50 kilos.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
manhandled me,
Yeah.
threw me around. Like I couldn't, when we're doing the clinching, I couldn't even like bend him like this in the slightest of way. It was like he had an iron rod for a spine.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he's throwing me around, laughing his ass, like not taking it seriously in the slightest. It's like, holy shit. And they're all like that over there.
When you're doing it when you're a child, they're tiny little muscles that you would have in your shoulders, all that type of stuff. It would be, you wouldn't be able to compare it to a normal person. Like they would have strength that is just undeniably like near on superhuman.
Yeah, well, because they start from such a young age. So my coach over there had a kid who was still in nappies at that point.
Yeah.
And if I held my hands out straight away, this kid who couldn't really walk that much, but God would get into a fight stance and would start like throwing as if I was holding pads. If I threw my hands down together, he'd throw kicks.
Yeah.
Like if you get a camera out straight into a pose, like it's just ingrained.
Yeah.
Ingrained, and it's not frowned upon. The first fight night I went to in my first Thailand experience was at a Buddhist temple. And so it was surreal.
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, it was legit like gold temples and shit. And you had all these monks sitting ringside. But the first probably half a dozen fights were kids under the age of 10.
Yeah, see, I reckon bring that in here.
They were going so hard. It was
I reckon
great.
have that fucking...
Yeah.
The Big Bash starts tonight in the cricket.
Do it.
Have that instead.
Way more entertaining.
100%.
Yeah.
Have it like full-on MCG Coliseum.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be
Yeah.
fucking sick.
But Thailand's so crazy because it's just such a... The culture of fighting there is so deeply ingrained, and they don't fuck around.
It's like being a tradesperson in Australia.
Yeah.
Everyone's just like, well done. You've done it. It's the golden ticket.
Yeah.
Over there. They're just like, wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, over here you get your can of Red Bull or iced coffee.
Yeah.
Over there it's just like, oh, here's some like Thai oil and a mongkong. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking... Did you, when you're in Thailand and stuff like that, like what was it like training in the gyms? Any crazy experiences? Any interesting things that pop into your mind?
Yeah, there's probably a few different things that happened. I think I never got to fight there, which is like a huge regret. I was getting ready to fight over there and had trained very, very hard for an extended period of time there. And like 2 days beforehand was like the last sparring session. And I was quite light then. I was competing probably 70 kilos.
Yeah, okay.
And, you know, I'm 95 now.
Yeah,
so it was a lot of kilos ago. And I was there training and was doing the last sparring round against this guy who would have been 110 kilos muscle.
That's me, but not the muscle.
This guy was big British, like lump.
Yeah.
And I was, you know...
70 kilos.
Yeah, but levels above him in skill.
Oh, so he smacked you.
And he was good at the start, and like that's why he was able to be in the ring with me, because they thought, oh, this guy's pretty controlled, and he demonstrated control leading into it. But like, so I'm toying with this guy at this point, and you know, my coach is giving instructions of like what he wants to see me doing and stuff like that. And then this guy just out of nowhere just was like something snapped and he went full retard, and he threw like a leg kick like right on the side of my knee at 100% that I just wasn't expecting it. So I wasn't even thinking that he was going to do that, because for the previous 8 minutes he hadn't, and that dropped me and I had to pull out of the fight. So I couldn't wait there for like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
But then the coach
Bash that guy.
beat the fuck out of this guy. He got in there like, because they had to be like, no, and he just kept going hard. He was teeing off, and like, because I was trying to like, I stood back up and I was like in the corner just trying to deal with it and just throwing punches. But this guy was just like, every sort of strike he would go harder and harder and harder. And then this coach Mitt got in the ring and just beat the crap out of this dude.
Which is good.
Yeah, I mean, got what he deserved. But my favourite thing was, it's kind of not really favourite, but one of the most memorable things. So at Fairtex, one of the the most famous fighters there is Yodsanklai Fairtex, and elite world champion,
Yeah.
many times over in many different, Thai,
Yeah.
but not built Thai, built like an islander. Like this
Oh.
guy's like
Yeah,
just
okay.
a muscle, and his his left kick is just ridiculous. Like when you're holding pads, like you get a little bit airborne and weightless from the power of them. I tried one and he's just laughing. He would have probably only been going 70%, but like, holy shit. And there was this Yank dude there, and I can't remember his name, but we used to call him the Diamond because he had this massive diamond tattoo through his whole back.
Cool guy. Yep.
Oh, he was aggressively American in all the wrong ways. Running his mouth. Yeah. What's up, Yanks? But he's running his mouth, like talking down to the coaches.
See, that's
talking shit to all the female fighters there. Like, and just like swanning around.
Is he big?
He wasn't that big, but like his ego was ginormous. And they ended up asking him to leave, and he just refused to. And he's like, "No, I'm gonna fucking go on a rampage here. I'm gonna take you all down with me." And he's just running his mouth, and like, "You need to leave. Go in your room, get your stuff." And he's like, "No, I'm not leaving." And he goes into his room, locks the door, and he's like, "You can't. I've paid. He's like, you can't make me go. You know, blah blah blah." And then next minute, Yodsanklai rocks up, literally just kicks the door in and grabs this guy, throws him out onto the street like it was a movie. Never seen that guy again.
Really?
Yeah, and all because there were all these coaches. Yeah, and like all the coaches had like their little bum bags, and you know, there's all these theories about some of the coaches who had like machete scars and stuff. It's like, oh, what's in that? Yeah, it's hardcore. The Diamond was never seen again after that.
And that guy is Poirier. Yeah, that's cool. Like, it is funny, that type of like, I did like an amateur one when I was there, like amateur, like the barbecue beatdown at Tiger.
Yeah.
And I did win because I weighed 27 kilos heavier than my mate Bob. But even doing that was terrifying. But my terrifying thing was having my shirt off.
Yeah,
I was just like, as soon as the fucking bell goes, like, give me my t-shirt.
Back on.
Yeah. Because I was there to literally lose weight. I was probably similar to what I am now.
Yep.
But I think when I started, I was around like 130. So I was just like, all right, it's fucking...
Great place to go to do it.
I did. Like, I lost 30 kilos in 3 months. Like full on, like, crackhead. Just put my whole life into that. Didn't drink, didn't do anything. It was just like, you go, you train, and then you come home, and then on Sundays, because the gym's closed, you get to do a run, and then you get a shadow box, and then it was just rinse and repeat. But I went insane.
Yeah.
I went fucking cocoa bananas, came back to Australia, put 20 kilos or more on within like 6 months, because I was just like, oh yeah, I can drive and go to KFC and do this and that. And the food's not all healthy that I'm buying for $2. So yeah, it just got me. But it's... how do you... We'll probably go into this a little bit further later, but the mindset of when you're training for a fight, right? How do you stay diligent to be like I've got to cut weight, or I've got to fucking do this. I've got to be in peak physical form. How do you maintain the rage?
It's hard.
Yeah.
Training is way harder than the actual fight. The fight's fun. I equate the training to doing pre-season in footy.
Yeah.
It's like, it's long, it's arduous. Each session kind of blends into the next one. But in footy, once you get to round one, it's like, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Fighting's exactly the same. I think I always had the mentality of, oh, my opponent's doing this and my opponent's doing more. I'd have to play games mentally to get up for sessions and to, you know, run that extra K when I didn't want to, and to, you know, do all the recovery things. And I think the biggest thing that I learned over my career in martial arts was the need to recover as well, because at the start, like, we didn't know what we were doing, and you were just doing it the ways that were done for generations beforehand. So you'd overtrain all the time. But later in my career, getting a lot smarter, it's like, okay, I need to actually rest, and that's just as important. But mentally, it's tough. It's a grind.
Yeah. What about the self-doubt of, like, what happens if I see fighters all the time, you know, they cry after they lose and stuff like that. And I get that, because they might have trained for 6, 8, 12 weeks, or had like some absurd long, and they put all this time into it, and then they get fucking knocked out, tapped out, whatever, quickly. And then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
like, I can see how your heart would break, because You put so much time in the background. It's not like you guys are walking around absolutely jacked to the gills but doing nothing. You know, if you are, you're training your dick off. You're not going out drinking. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. And I've met dudes who are like, yeah, I just don't even, like, my missus hates when I fight because I'm just shit to be around. And it's just like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's 12 weeks of relationships that you're potentially hurting outside of the ring, octagon. So take also a special sort of person to be with a fighter. Because you know that some dude's just on his period for 12 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. I only just occurred to me then is that when I was competing, I couldn't maintain a relationship.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of it because you've got to be incredibly selfish during a fight camp.
Yeah.
And you can't compromise. If you compromise, there's a very direct, I guess, result and consequence. But it's a challenge. It's certainly... It's not easy to go through all of that, and especially when you like having to cut weight and do all that and maintain all the discipline, and there's no balance in your life. And I've got a sweet tooth, so I'd be filling up petrol and going to pay. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many chocolates here that I could eat, but I can't. Fuck, all of those things. It's like I'm good on the tooth. I love some food, but when you can't have it, it's really But then you just use all that energy. You know, when it's go time, you just take it out.
I guess I suppose not many people in their life as well get to be in peak condition or their prime. Like I've never seen a six pack on my body. I fucking struggle to see my dick, but like that, you know, I mean, you can have photos now to be like, look. I know it's like one of those ones when you get older and you're like, oh, look what I used to be. But also you had that time. It's like when people, you know, were in big actors, comedians, blah, 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 and they get dejected and stuff like that because they're not at the peak now. But at least you had the peak.
Yep.
So, but I mean, for fighting too, ego-driven, it must be fucking hard.
It is. It's different training as well because you're not training to look good. You're training to be a weapon. Yeah. Everything has to have a use when you're training. And so... and that was a big shift for me when I then started to transition out of martial arts because I worked in a lot of gyms and doing like, you know, personal training and then strength and conditioning, which felt a lot more comfortable. But the personal training where everyone's just trying to look good. Yeah.
It's like, why?
When I was getting ready for a fight, like I didn't do any bench press because that wasn't useful for what I was trying to accomplish at the time. I never did a bicep curl. It was all like, is there a function for this that's going to make me hit harder or last longer? Yeah,
I suppose there's like, you have to work out everything because obviously if you're training like a maniac too, you can't waste time.
No, everything's accounted, especially MMA because there's so many different components that you have to be on top of. You know, your striking, your grappling, your strength and conditioning, your diet. There's so many different things. Whereas, you know, if you're just doing Muay Thai, you're just doing Muay Thai and your diet and strength and conditioning, you don't having to worry about your grappling and all the different injuries that come from that.
We're just going to pause. You just mentioned then that potential and different training techniques, blah, blah, blah. Injuries. How do you go about an injury? Did you have a good run on injuries? Going by that expression, you know. I
mean, for the first part, I did.
Yeah.
But because
being a young man, is that?
Well, that helped and hindered in a sense because by the time I got to 25, 26, a lot of kilometers on the tires for me. Starting competing at such a young age, so that's why I stopped fighting. At such a young age because there was not a lot of tread left and injuries were becoming much more of a thing. You know, from just simple injuries, you know, like the odd like busted finger and stuff like that. I'm pretty lucky in that my nose is fairly straight. It never broke it, but I can only breathe out of one side of my nostril.
That's just the cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because we're just swimming in cash in MMA, in martial arts here. My knees had to pull out of my last fight because I'd done a lateral collateral ligament in my knee, so I had no mobility. I got slammed on my neck when I was living in the States. This big, crazy German guy, lovely dude, but didn't know his own strength, and he picked me up and just kind of slammed me. And so, like, even today, like my back, I get this weird, like, sharp twinge from that, and that's. I'll just always have, I'll wake up one day without any rhyme or reason and I won't be able to like turn my head to the left for like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
But I just never got dropped on my head like when I was a baby. So could you, like a brief thing of the injuries you've had from fighting? Like is there any?
ACL, LCL, PCL, turf toe, which is the most painful one. It sounds ridiculous, but
I get it.
Turf toe, oh my God, it was so painful. I remember...
What is turf toe?
It's like this, and I don't even know if I've got this right, but it's like an inflammation sort of between the joints.
It happens to AFL players and they're out for half the fucking year, 3/4 of the year.
Yeah, it's so painful.
Essentially, I think that like it's usually a big toe.
Yeah.
And then it's the joint, like where you would move.
Yep.
And I believe the inflammation never settles.
Yep.
And then it's like you stub your toe every single time.
Yep.
And that's how I've been explained.
Yeah, it's like every step feels like you're doing that. And I even remember exactly where I was, exactly what happened. I was in America because I lived there for a while for martial arts, and Victor Davila, who is the UFC color commentator for Mexico or the Spanish language. We were doing this takedown drill where it was like King of the Mountain. So everyone was on the mats taking each other down as the last person standing. And he like got me from my blind spot, and I felt it at the time. Didn't think anything of it. By the time I'd gotten home and had a shower, I couldn't stand on my foot. And that was intense. I've done that. A couple of elbow injuries on my left side, where I was training at a school which I shall not name, and I tapped out the coach a couple of times, and he didn't like that, and then went 100% on an armbar. No, it wasn't Eddie. Eddie was great. Eddie's good. Eddie was good.
Oh, you met Eddie?
I trained under Eddie. Yeah. Eddie gave me my blue belt.
I just take a joke. The one person I know.
No, Eddie's great. Eddie's great. No, so that, like, you know the sound when you get a chicken like drumstick and you like break it open and you can feel that tendony sort of sound.
I know chicken.
Yeah, that happened in both of my elbows. But one because the coach didn't like that I tapped him, so he went too hard.
Are you a black belt?
No. I'm just a lowly purple belt.
What's the hierarchy of the belts?
White, blue, purple, brown, black. But I'm purple because I didn't go to gradings for like 10 years from my job in footy.
Okay,
Yeah, so what else have I had? Necks, only one very bad concussion, but probably lots of smaller ones over the years.
Hey, so going into concussion, because that is a hot topic in football at the moment. You've done coaching with multiple AFL clubs and VFL clubs. Concussion from your side of it, you've had a bad concussion yourself. What is that? Because I see concussions all the time. I watch a shit ton of sport. What actually does a concussion feel like, or what did it do to you?
Yep. It's different for everyone, the experience. For me, I'm not sure if you've ever had a migraine, but it's like having a migraine without the head pain for me when I experienced it. So hypersensitive to light, vision was a little bit blurry, this kind of like weird nauseousness all the time, and like I had to like move slowly. That's
so strange.
It was a weird
like vertigo / fucking migraine.
Yeah. And then every now and then you'd get the pain in the head.
Yeah, fuck that. Yeah, no wonder like so cautious behind the AFL. At the moment, like the way that I think about it is like just sign a waiver.
Well,
but also too, you're like, well, they're young men and they probably deserve not to get their brains cut.
Yeah, I think definitely the age thing has a role to play in it and limiting things. But I think once you get to a certain age, like like I know what I was signing up for when I was competing in martial arts. Like I knew that there's inherent risk, and there was part of you that had to be okay with that, and especially in martial arts versus working in footy, because in martial arts, like you're trying to fuck someone up,
that's crazy.
and it may not be like your thought process of like I'm trying to hurt you, but that's what we're doing. And you always had to make peace with that before any type of even if it was just a grappling competition. You had to make peace with like, this could be it for me today, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, actually.
Yeah,
I never thought the wake up in the morning type thing. Probably when I did that little exhibition type fight, smoker fight as they referred to it in Thailand. Probably at the time, we were like, "Oh, what if I just get hit?" And that's the end.
it can happen.
Yeah, but like for you that actively put yourself in that position all the time.
Yeah,
it's like a surfer getting bitten by a shark. You know what I mean? It's like, sharks are out there.
Yeah.
If you want to go out there, that's where the waves are.
Yep, absolutely. And you even see it, even if it's not like death, but like paralysis is something that, especially in the grappling arts, happens quite a bit when people like just fall the wrong way with with like the wrong body weight of someone else and different angles. Like injuries, severe and fatal, happen all the time in that world.
In grappling?
Yeah.
So grappling, from what I can understand, is just a fancy term for wrestling?
Wrestling, jiu-jitsu, sambo, judo, any...
non-striking.
Yeah.
I know there is striking now.
Yeah, in limited,
Yeah, but for the most part, because I've always wondered when on UFC, they're like, grappling is such a big part of the game. And it's like, okay, so it's just anything that's not striking,
basically.
Essentially.
Yeah. When they're against the cage, that's more your Greco-Roman type stuff. It's very physically draining. It's basically just like violent cuddles. So just think of it that way. Like we're cuddling, but there's a little bit of danger here.
Yeah, ladies. So you said you trained in the States.
Yep.
I know we're a bit out of whack with different timelines here, but did you train with Eddie Bravo? Did you train with any other big names that...
Biggest name was is Joe Rogan. Trained with Joe.
Wow.
And he, lovely dude.
Yeah.
Super lovely. Only trained, like sparred with him probably 2, maybe 3 times. Wasn't a huge amount, but...
he looks strong as a...
Holy shit. He's like a washing machine with arms and legs. Like he's intense. Yeah. And he's super short, but he's just thick and dense and muscly and very technical and
he
knows
the shit out of you.
He like very forcefully cuddled me. It was aggressive snuggles with Joe.
It's a good fun. Did you chat to him at all?
What's and like so at the time he was still the Joe Rogan podcast existed at that time.
What
but it
year
was
this?
This would have been when I trained with him 2009. So it's very early days. But
still a big dog though.
At the time he was big because
Fear
of
Factor.
UFC and Fear Factor. Not from the podcast. Podcasting wasn't a big deal back then, but he just got in early, and it was mainly just him and Joey Diaz every week.
All the retards.
And all the guys from the gym would be on it and stuff
really?
like that. Yeah, because Eddie Bravo still goes on it.
So you trained at Eddie Bravo's gym at the time?
Yep, correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
He's a superstar, isn't he?
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. Great. You'd have a lot of UFC guys coming through there. Dan Hardy at the time was a big deal. He was getting ready to fight GSP. And so he was there. George Soteropoulos, an Aussie icon in grappling. He's training there.
Yeah, I want to get him on the pod.
Yeah. He runs a gym in Collingwood. Omega. Yeah.
His sister sold me a bed.
Yeah, that is fucking random.
Yeah.
He's an intense unit, George. But he was great. It was especially for me, had to have another Australian there.
Yeah.
I think for him as well, that was really...
He's from Geelong.
Yeah, he's from G. He's one of the first black belts in the country.
He's one of like pioneers of MMA in Australia, I believe. Because I think they changed the law. Because MMA wasn't allowed to be... Remember when you couldn't train MMA?
Yeah.
In Victoria?
And you couldn't fight in a cage. It had to be in a boxing ring.
It's fucking... And look at it now. Like, Melbourne has one of the biggest attendances ever in the UFC. The famous fight of Holly Holm and fucking...
I was there, It's crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking...
It's gotten so big that there was a period of time where I knew every single like MMA and BJJ school in Victoria because there was just so few of them.
Yeah.
And now there's so many of them with so many teachers, and some people are getting imported from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And it's wild how much it's grown.
It's pretty cool. Like, obviously you've built a career on it, and then obviously, do you do any training of any description now?
I train at Australian Combat Sports Academy in Fairfield.
Yeah.
I don't get to train as much as I would like because of comedy.
Yeah.
And I teach the beginners class on a Monday night, which is a lot of fun.
What are we teaching?
I'm teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
So I teach the beginners, just the white belts, which is very entertaining. It can be very frustrating sometimes, but it does make me better as a grappling sort of practitioner because I have to really, really think about things and moves. And explain it to people who maybe don't have the body awareness or the background.
Spazzy kids.
And white belts are terrifying. Like they're where the injuries happen.
Oh, even kids. How old are they? What?
I work with adults.
Oh,
I work with adults. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
I know we've sort of jumped over the place that I was saying, but can you give us a timeline? So you're 23, was it? And you started MMA.
Yep.
Tell me when you get to America or overseas, and like sort of how does that timeline work?
Yep. Saw that UFC fight with Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. Started training. Started training. It's cool. Started training in jiu-jitsu because I knew, recognized that's a huge, weak spot for me.
Yep.
So started training in that, and then quit my job, moved to America in 2009. Would have been maybe 24, I think, if my maths is correct. I'd been training basically less than a year. So I did an extended stint in Thailand and then went to America from there and trained there, and then came back the following year and basically just got stuck into things and started competing here. I competed in America.
How'd you go?
Good.
Amateur?
I think my favorite thing was in a grappling and pancration tournament. So pancration is basically MMA, but with slightly modified rules. It's like the old Greek version of it.
Because there used to be Pancras, whatever it was.
Same thing.
Yeah, the fighting organisation.
Pancras, I pulled off submission of the day at a day tournament there, which was cool because back then it was still you could do day tournaments where you'd compete multiple times.
Not a thing now?
Not really. If it is, it's not in Australia. The legalities around some of the things that you used to do versus today are very different.
Yeah. What was submission of the day? What did you get?
I got a go-go plata. So basically I'm on my back and I get my shin over the guy's shoulder, but then in front of his throat. And then I sort of reach around.
Your shin?
I reach around and then I grab my toe and I kind of basically stretch my shin into his throat while my arm is behind his head.
I can't even figure out in my head.
If I was wearing looser jeans, I would demonstrate right now. But
Jared's coming soon.
Yeah, sweet, but that was fun. And basically just came back here, was competed there, competed here.
How long in the States were you?
For that stint, just under a year.
Yeah, okay.
But then went back multiple times.
So you've all of a sudden got into MMA.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're just like, I'm just going to go to the States and do this.
Pretty much.
How the fuck can you do how did visas and stuff work?
Yeah, that's why I came back. So I did have things set up so I could stay. And then the sponsor, the organisation that was going to sponsor me, the two owners got into a tiff and dissolved the business. So that was my ticket. So I was like, fuck. But basically just sort of competed pretty consistently until I think my last fight was 2014 or 15.
You win?
No, I lost. Yeah.
That's the end of the pod.
And to loop back before, you're talking about what happens after a fight. I was in the change rooms inconsolable, tears. To be fair, it was a stitch up. And this is where MMA's and martial arts in general has gotten so much better in Australia, is because at that point, the refereeing, you still had kickboxing refs or boxing refs.
Yeah.
There was
designated.
Yeah, people who know what's happening. So in the first round of that fight, I choked the guy unconscious, and the ref came from kickboxing.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to check that this guy was unconscious.
And so he just came back.
I had the guy in a triangle choke, and I'm like punching him, and whilst yelling at the ref that he's out, my corner is screaming at the ref that this guy's out.
Yeah.
And then their corner is also saying he's out, and the ref, I remember it like it was a minute ago, is just like staring at me, just like didn't know what to do. It's like he'd frozen in time.
Kill him.
And then the bell sort of went, and I like, that was when my career ended, is when the bell went. Because for me, I realised what the risk was for someone else.
Yeah,
and that my killer instinct just went in that moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, so how the fuck did you lose?
So this was still...
Disqualified for killing a man?
Yeah, imagine that. No, because it was still in the boxing ring era, so cages weren't legal yet in Victoria. And so in the next round, because obviously he had enough time to come to, like it doesn't take that long or anything like that. And I was very distracted by what had happened.
Yeah.
PTSD. And the next round came out, and this guy shot for a takedown, and we fell through the ring ropes. And so lucky that where we were was where one of the judges was sitting. So we landed on a table instead of an extra couple of feet down.
You're literally like WWE.
Yeah, at this point it was, yeah.
Cage, fucking ladder match or something.
Yeah, it was hardcore. It was so lucky that I landed there and not the next seat over where the bell was, because that would have just ripped my back up. But then you're meant to start from standing after that. And the ref was like, oh, well, he went for a takedown and you fell through the ring rope, so we're going to put him in a position. And literally the whole game plan was just don't let him get into this position, like a judo scarf hold side control.
Yeah.
And that's the position the ref put him in. And then bang, he just snatched a Kimura, and it was like, all right, I'll either break my shoulder or tap out. And so I tapped out, and then afterwards, inconsolable. It was for a title as well. And
Did you win any other titles?
No, this was, I was going to go out on that one. And then afterwards, he came up to me in the locker rooms, and he's just like, I was out. Like, this belt, whenever you're ready, like, we'll go again. And then that's when the injury, like I did my knee getting ready for that, and then did my elbow. And so then it was like bang, bang, bang. And then that fight just got further and further and further away. And then, because you don't get paid much back then as well. So that title fight, I'd trained for 8 weeks very seriously for it. And at the end of it, I got an envelope with like $350 in it.
Jeez, so it's near on impossible to have back then be a professional fighter and not have a day job.
Yeah. So at the time, I was doing an internship in strength and conditioning at Melbourne Storm. I was working part-time strength and conditioning.
To their glory.
Yeah. I was working part-time in the VFL at Coburg, and was studying, and it just was killing me cash-wise.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. It is crazy that you can do things that take so much time and are physically demanding, and like, as Sean Strickland always says, he's like, I get fucking years taken off my life.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, and I get paid $7,000. Like when he was talking about when he started.
Well, that's the thing. Unless you're at the absolute top of the tree, you're not getting paid that much especially when you factor in expenses to train and to, if you're not fighting in your hometown, you got to fly your coach and a corner over there as well and pay for their accommodation and all that sort of stuff. Like, unless you're top of the tree, you're not actually making money. You're just surviving money.
Yeah. What's the idea? Like, is it to be a professional, like, as in living a good life? Like, is that the idea? Or is it like something at the time that you were like, this is all I know. This is just what I'm going to do? Or was the idea was to get to the UFC, whatever? What was your goal?
All of the above.
Yeah, okay.
It was something that I was good at. Yep. And something that I enjoyed doing. And I've always been someone who, if I've got like a goal or a dream, I don't tend to overthink it too much. I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like something I want to do, so I'm going to go and do that.
Move to America.
Yeah. And it's literally like, it was kind of that sort of vibe. And if I ended up in the UFC, great. I knew I was going to get to a level where I was going to turn pro. and then it just kind of unfolded how it did.
Yeah. What's your, because people are going to be kicking themselves, or more me, amateur record, pro record?
For amateur, couldn't tell you.
How many amateur fights do you think you had?
Oh, Jesus.
MMA, I mean.
Yeah, couldn't tell you.
Okay.
My record, I was telling you this like off camera. I thought my record was 8-2 as a professional. I would have said that till I was blue in the face, like taking that to the grave.
Yeah.
And then I was having a conversation with someone who I shall not name, who is
Eddie brother.
a box who has a boxing background, and he was talking about his record.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like that sounded really unusual. His record.
307.
It was like one of those sorts of things. Like, and you're like in Thailand, absolutely.
Yeah.
In Australia, I'm like that can't be true. And then I tried to like find this guy on the fight registry, and couldn't find him. And then I was like, I wonder what mine is. And so mine came up. The only fight that is registered and acknowledged is that fight where we fell through the ring ropes.
Oh,
That's
really?
the only one that exists.
So you're 0-1?
Yeah, officially.
And
yeah,
a title fight.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why it's like surely they're not going to be like, oh yeah, your first pro fight was for a belt, like
unless you're like fucking, I don't know,
coming from like the Olympics or something.
like
that.
like that,
like
coming
a Bo
over
Nickel or something.
yeah. Like, we know you're going to be a freak, man. Just do this. Yeah.
Because you'd have fights, and now looking back, it's like, well, maybe they weren't legal. You know, like when they stop an event to let the Hells Angels come in and sit ringside and boot people out, then it's like, yeah, maybe it wasn't that legal.
Wait, was that a real thing?
That was, yeah.
Wait,
that was a real
explain
thing.
that story.
It was just a fight night. Well, it's one of those ones I'm not sure how much you can say. But it was a fight night in the outer northern suburbs, and in like an industrial estate. I mean, looking back now, all the signs are there that this probably wasn't legal. But they had like cameras and stuff. So I'm like, oh, this is legit.
Yeah.
Like there was like a proper weigh-in event. Like I'm like, oh yeah, this is legit. But it was literally in an industrial estate, like one of those like industrial buildings that they had just put a ring in.
Yeah.
And yeah, halfway through the event, they just stopped the event. So that it was probably 30 Hells Angels came in and just took their seats ringside, and then they just kicked the event going again like it was nothing.
Really?
So that was not uncommon. And then it was like a lot of bikey culture in the fight world in Australia, like kickboxing a lot. Boxing probably used to be more, but boxing's kind of dying a little bit. But it's definitely like an MMA these days. And yeah, back then that was a thing. And then, you know, because we were still a novelty sport back then, so, and very much frowned upon in Victoria in particular. But then you'd get asked to do things where, you know, like I competed at a funeral once.
What?
It's like
in MMA?
Yeah, it was sort of, so initially, again, I don't know how much I can say about this, but initially, so there was a very high profile, we'll call it manslaughter, that had happened. And I remember training at the time, and this person rocked up to the gym. I couldn't pick their face. Like I'd seen them somewhere. I couldn't pick where they were from. Turns out,
Chopper Reed.
Yeah, it wasn't Chop. It turned out like they were on the news at the time because it was their family member who had been knocked off.
Yeah.
And so initially they came to us to be sort of unofficial security at the burial because they thought things were going to kick off a little bit.
Yeah.
And they said, just bring your stuff, and if nothing happens, then we'll have like a bit of an exhibition bout as entertainment. And so
a funeral.
Yeah.
It'd be better if, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a thing that happened, and, you know, like got paid for it. And so, you know, always got paid for things.
Yeah.
So you always thought that they were, you know, and you knew what was a smoker, and you knew what was, you know, like an amateur bout. But when things were, when you're getting paid, you kind of...
What Can you tell us what a smoker actually is?
Smokers just, I guess it's almost like an inter-club now or an intra-club where it's, generally it's slightly modified rules, but it's kind of a bit more than sparring, but not, full bore.
Pads.
Exactly. You might have
Shin
shin pads on and maybe slightly bigger gloves.
No knees to the head.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Bows.
But then sometimes you'd go to a smoker and, if both people agreed, you could go, anything goes.
Do you remember there was a channel on Foxtel, and I think it used to be called Aurora Sports?
Yeah, I remember that.
I reckon there was that was the channel that you could have been on.
Yeah, but wouldn't have shot. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember watching those fights, and they were agreed upon. They're like, it'd be like Hammer from Hammer's Gym or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll be like, fucking these two guys have agreed full Muay Thai rules, and then someone would get elbowed twice, and they'd be like shaking their head like, what the fuck? It's
that was the thing.
Apparently they didn't agree.
Well, before that title fight, it was meant to be it was pro fight. It was meant to be full rules.
Yeah.
And the day of, the opponent said no elbows.
Oh. And you were like, I just sharpened it.
Oh, literally. And I'm quite good elbow fighter.
Yeah.
And it was, if I didn't agree.
Wrestling.
Well, yeah, it was like, if I didn't agree, the fight was done.
Yeah, okay. So who's the champ then?
Yeah, exactly.
Rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah. Just get into it. But then you'd rock up to some events and you knew that all right, this is a dodgy sort of thrown together at the last minute, where it was almost like you were competing in Thailand, where they're like, oh yeah, you guys look similar.
Yeah.
And I had to compete against a guy who was, doing the maths in my head, 13 kilos heavier than me.
Yeah.
Which
is big.
And especially because I was quite light at the time.
Yeah.
So it was huge. And I kicked the fuck out of him. Yeah. But still, that was the thing. It's that's not fair.
Yeah.
But it didn't faze me in the end.
Well, that's good. So your wins and losses. So let's call it 8-2 in MMA. How many? What's the wins? What styles? How'd you win? Knockout?
Submission, TKOs.
Yeah.
Never saw the judges.
Yeah, okay.
So all
Did
submissions,
you ever
TKOs.
spark someone out clean gold?
Not in training. Once I did.
Okay.
In Thailand, when it was a hard sparring sort of session.
That's why the guy broke your knee. Probably
it was a different dude at same trip though.
Brother.
Different dude, same trip.
Yeah.
It was this Canadian guy from Toronto, maybe, and this guy was just arrogant as shit and running his mouth and thought that because of the size difference that he'd be fine against me, and he was going hard in the paint.
Yeah.
He was going so hard, and I just nailed a combination, and everyone was pretty happy about it because everyone didn't like this guy.
Okay, I'm back. Favorite win? What an intro.
Yeah, favorite win. Yeah, favorite win. So favorite win was against that guy who was 13 kilos heavier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I loved that win because, one, I had no business even competing against this guy. He was 2 weight divisions up from me.
Yeah.
And his gym were just dodgy.
Bikies?
They would have been at the time. Yeah, everything about them was dodgy.
Should we name and shame? They don't seem violent.
Yeah, I don't even know if they exist anymore.
Don't name them.
Yeah,
That's the last people I want to name. Right?
Let's get a big knock on the door. And this is probably, I could have fought the next day. I could have fought that day again after beating this guy. So he comes out and I threw a leg kick. And again, Thai trained with a lot of my striking, but with the karate mentality. So I threw a leg kick, got out of the way, and this guy didn't check it. I thought, okay, first one.
Yep.
Threw the next one. Exact same spot. Didn't check it. I was like, okay.
Were you hitting him? Lower leg or upper leg?
Just upper leg, just above the knee, just sort of right in the meat of the thigh there. Then threw an inside leg kick. Now, because of my karate background, I didn't need to switch stance and throw a switch kick. I just whip it in from where I was.
So one leg's just copping it.
So I just went inside leg kick. And at that point, I thought, I'm now going to load up and throw one with everything. Because you never actually throw one with everything. You're throwing, Some might be 50%, some might be 80%, and everything in between, because you're just sort of mentally keeping the person occupied. You're trying to control the distance and the timing and interrupt their rhythm and pick up what they're doing.
Also, if they check 100% leg kick, it would fuck you.
It sucks. Yeah. And you're conditioned, but it still hurts. Anyone who says otherwise is full of shit.
Yeah, fuck.
And then I loaded up on this guy and just went everything into it. And at that moment, I was like, oh, I just broke this guy mentally. Oh. And you can kind of see it happen.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but it's literally just like a twig snapping.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you've met my ex-girlfriend. You dated her. Yeah. And this guy, he just broke mentally. Yeah. And then I just went after this leg. I went chopping for trees. And he took 16 leg kicks in that spot in the first round.
Oh, he got through.
No. Oh. And so then he like shot for this like Hail Mary takedown, and I reversed it. And so I ended up getting him in a position where like his arm was up like this, and I just controlled him and just started laying into his ribs then at this point. Didn't hit him in the face at all.
Yeah.
And the referee was like, that's enough.
Yeah.
So I literally won the fight. I took 0 damage. This guy, I mean, he probably couldn't walk for a couple of days, but in terms of like head trauma, 0 head trauma for him. Good. I was very polite about things, but also like he had no business being in the ring with me at that time.
It's that whole thing like, you want to fucking fight me?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the 2 losses you had, you said you got a bad concussion.
Yep.
Was that in a loss or was that training?
That was in training.
I've heard that that's the most...
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've heard that when people are super tired...
Yep.
Obviously, they can still punch and kick extremely hard, but they put effort into doing it. So what do they say? A tired fighter's a dangerous fighter?
Exactly, because they're just swinging and it's wild. And that's what was happening. A friend of mine was getting ready to fight. Yep. And so it was just a sparring round. And he... was kind of on top of me in a grappling position, and I'd been just messing with him that whole round. I was dominating that round, and I thought he was about to like get up at the end of the round, so I like relaxed a little bit, and then he just turned and just went whack. And it was the combination of me not being prepared for it, him being tired and probably throwing a little bit too much, but then my head just went bang into the mat again. Yeah. So that was bad. I remember that night I knew that I wasn't going to be able to like go to work and stuff the next day from it. Yeah. And I typed an email being like, hey, I think I got a concussion. I'm not going to be in tomorrow. And then
they obviously know you're a fighter.
Yeah. And then
she come to work with black eyes.
Yeah, and that was a thing that happened.
My wife beats me.
Oh, it was fucked sometimes. But the next day I looked at the email and none of it made sense. It was just all like gibberish.
I was thinking that.
Yeah. But then once I remember I rocked up. So I used to work for a not-for-profit. I worked for a few over the years, but one I would go into schools and I had just competed and I had to get someone else to drive, because I had like not a bad concussion, but like a mild one. It was like a 2-hour drive, but I had 2 black eyes. And I was rocking up to work at a school with 2 black eyes. My mate comes to pick me up, who also worked the same place. So he was going to co-deliver this workshop for year 9s about goals and confidence and all that sort of stuff. He'd had a head clash playing footy and so he had a blood eye. So I'm running a workshop for year 9s wearing aviator sunglasses on the whole time. He's got a blood eye. It was just not a good look.
People are like, this guy's fucking sick.
Yeah, and my other loss was a DQ, and that was my fault. I
stomped on a guy.
I stomped a hole through his face. I just didn't read up on the rules properly, and so the whole like grounded opponent sort of thing. Yeah, need the guy in the face. Fight was done.
See, I watch that stuff, and I'm like, how the fuck could you be that dumb? And then it's like, they're tired.
You don't think when you're in there.
Fucking also, some guns just battered them.
Yeah,
you're like, I get the chance to boot this guy in the sky.
Yeah. You need to soccer punt someone.
Yeah, that's the one. Like,
some organisations you can do all that stuff, especially back in the day.
Yeah. You look at those Russian ones.
Like, Pride back in the day, you could stomp, you could punt.
Yeah. One of the ones that always makes me grimace is stomping on people's toes.
Oh yeah, that's. Yeah,
Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, the foot stomp. I mean,
it's so painful.
You can still do it. No one does it. I don't know why they don't, because it's painful.
It's like the calf kick. Like,
Yeah.
like obviously that's come back into like fashion. Or has probably always been around for kickboxers.
Yeah, in kickboxing, that was the thing. But I think, in MMA striking is nowhere near as sophisticated and sharp as kickboxing, but just because there's so many more things to be aware of. But MMA striking in the last 5 to 10 years gotten way better, and calf kicks are more of a thing. Like even just like, the range of striking and footwork, people are much more around their footwork.
The thing I wanted to touch on before, like we're getting close to finishing up, with like anything, you always look back at your career and then you look at the modern day stuff. Footballers are always like, oh, back in our day, fucking it was hard as this and that, blah, blah, blah. With fighting, it's still people beating the shit out of each other. So what differences do you see with modern fighters now coming up? Is it just like the style that they're training? So I assume grappling must be a massive emphasis on that.
Yeah. I wish I was starting now.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more opportunity, an opportunity to develop in Australia and to develop in the right way to make it to the highest levels.
Yeah.
The level of training is better, and the sophistication of training is better, and the knowledge around how to train for MMA in particular is better. There's more grappling coaches who are of a super, super high level. There's so many black belts now in the country. And that's always going to help. So the level now is, I think, way, way better than it was 10 years ago, because there's just so much more opportunity for people to compete and to train properly and compete under lights, with an audience, so that they develop that straight away.
Yeah. Another thing I just want to touch on, what do you think gets fighters from sort of like, let's use Conor McGregor as a perfect example. You've obviously got to have the ability to kick the shit out of someone. What do you think is the other attributes you need to have to be a successful fighter now?
You got to be able to win in a spectacular way.
Yep.
That's the thing that probably set Conor apart. Like, he would win.
Knockouts, flashy.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. Like, John Fitch would win all his fights. And a lot of people are like, who the fuck's John Fitch? Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So he would wrestle people. He would wrestle fuck them into submission and would win always by decision. But yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's another thing. But then like Conor can talk like no one else. Charles Sonnen can talk. Charles Sonnen talked himself into title fights. As an actual competitor, he was above average, but not title, worthy.
If you're listening to this, Chael, that's him. I think you're the best. Undefeated number one.
Yeah, Team Quest, you're still kicking ass.
Yeah.
But he was the best talker. And you look at Colby Covington, great talker. Yeah. But the thing that sets Conor apart from everyone else is that when Conor talks, it comes across as authentic as well. Whereas
it's his personality.
Yeah, Colby Covington, it's orchestrated and it's pretty obvious that it's like, we know you're just putting this on.
He's a heel.
Exactly.
It's a WWE
and
heel.
He's talked openly about doing that.
Yeah.
Which, great. Good on him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
superstar fighter though.
You got to be able to sell tickets.
Yes.
That's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's the entertainment industry.
Maybe that's what you can. You're obviously in entertainment now, so maybe you can go from not just like teaching them how to fight. You also you're part of the class.
How to do
like
promo.
Show.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, listen, today we're going to teach how to spit on someone correctly.
Well, I do a bit of commentating for a fight promotion called Bushido.
Okay.
And me and it's one of my very good friends, the one who gave me that concussion actually, and me and him have very good comic timing off each other. So most of it, we get a lot of feedback from people being like, couldn't tell you what happened in the fight, but geez, it was entertaining listening.
Just doing stand-up.
We're just trying to fuck with each other the whole time to see who's going to laugh at the most inappropriate thing, but try not to laugh.
Yeah, that's fair. I wanted to finish on this question. Is there anything that the average Joe probably needs to know about MMA? The next time they're watching it, the next time they're talking about it, anything from an ex-professional fighter who's still heavily in it. I assume you've got a lot of mates who are still actively competing. Is there anything that us mere mortals should know about MMA or mixed martial arts in general?
I think it's that old mentality or that old saying of like being in the arena is very different. Being the man in the arena versus watching.
Yeah.
And the amount of times, even when I'm like on commentary, when you hear people yell out instructions just from the audience, like just bash him.
Yeah, twist his direction.
Yeah, just stand up. Why can't they stand up?
I've done that before.
It's so different when you're in there, because when you're in there as well, you can only hear your coach's voice.
Yep.
Because you're so tuned and attuned to that, but also it's still so hard to do it. And I think just that it's like anything where unless you do it, you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's a very different experience when you're in there.
Yeah, it's fair. I did have one question I have to ask. What makes a good cornerman? Because I hear Joe Rogan talk about it all the time, and I'm like, well, why?
I have a lot of opinions on this. I think a good corner knows their fighter and knows what they respond to and doesn't just like yell for the sake of yelling.
Yep.
So where I train, we've got a great corner process there, but it's adapted for every fighter. So Dennis Kelly and Philip Lai, who head up Australian Combat Sports Academy, when they corner, they do it really well. It's like, all right, take a second, get your breath.
Yep.
Just relax a little bit, and then they'll give one or two very specific things to do.
Yep.
For the next round.
Yeah.
But also some people don't like work with that. Some people, they need to be just kind of slapped around and be like, hey, I need something from you. And it's not technical. It's not specific. It's more of like I need to like wake them up a little bit. A good corner knows what the fighter needs at that time and what they respond to and tailors it accordingly. Okay. It's when you see people just like, just bash them. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And they're like that with all of their fighters. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
And when I think Ronda Rousey's corners got really exposed.
Yeah.
Because they, in that fight with Holly Holm, they're saying, yeah, you're winning, you're doing a great job. She was getting starched from the start.
Yeah.
She was out of her depth, and her corner was ill-equipped to deal with that.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. I think also when you got a global megastar that you're like, yeah, I don't want to pretend like we're doing something wrong or she's losing, because she might be like, I need a new team, fuck off.
And that's a thing that happens. Yeah, that is a thing that happens. But also, like, if you're not telling the truth, like, eventually the truth will be exposed, and then you're going to get exposed for being a shit coach.
Yeah, that's double-edged sword.
And she had shit coaches.
Yeah, that's fair. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's much appreciated. We were going to do a second nap, but we've gone well over an hour for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Next week, we have someone on the podcast. Can't tell you who, because I don't know. All right, ladies and gents, thank you. Goodbye. Cheers.
Thank you.